24-hour news 8. It's the best news you'll get all May.
Welcome to Top Story. I'm Ken Owen. For the first time ever, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway will host a non-IndyCar event. Since the first race in 1911, the Indianapolis 500 has been the only auto racing event ever held at the Speedway. Until now.
It is for the sake of the fans who love racing. Indianapolis is a special place that we choose to undertake the building of a new tradition, as well as continue to build on the tradition of the Indianapolis 500. There will be a NASCAR Winston Cup stock car event here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Wednesday, Speedway President Tony George delivered the historic announcement thousands of race fans have been waiting to hear. The Brickyard adds a new chapter to its legendary history. A decision that comes 10 months after 9 NASCAR drivers took part in a 2-day test session. It received strong fan support, and so does the announcement that the good old boys are coming to Indy.
Were you here when they practiced? Oh, you should have been, man. It was loud. It was like the old Offenhausers.
For many NASCAR drivers, a ride at Indy will fulfill a dream.
Every kid that comes up through whatever type of motorsports that he's in, at some point in his life or in his career, he would like to race at Indianapolis.
I'm from Virginia, so I support the stock car races. I think it'll be wonderful.
I think one of the major problems they're going to have is whether or not the track's going to be torn up and have to resurface the track each year for the Indy cars, because NASCARs, they run different setups, and they have been known to tear up quite a few tracks.
EARNHARTT on the outside around Unser.
But as driver DARRELL WALTRIP said jokingly, at least they won't have to mow the grass while we're here.
Hill and Unser get together, sliding through the grass in the infield.
When we come to town, we don't hide. We go. Everybody carries one of these. We go to the restaurants. We go to the malls. We go to the theaters. We get out in town and we mingle with the fans. That's why our sport is as popular as it is. And I think if there is a tradition, we'll bring that with us.
And that's what local officials are counting on. 150,000 people attended the NASCAR test session last June. Conservatively, Mayor Goldsmith predicts the Brickyard 400 crowd will mean $20 to $30 million a day to the local economy.
The economic impact is difficult to evaluate. The economic impact of the 500 itself has never been completely quantified. Let me just do this briefly. We have over 200 race-related businesses in Indianapolis, and every activity, especially an enormous one like this, that further solidifies that base, creates economic opportunities, jobs moving here, businesses moving here, concentration of activity.
What impact will the Brickyard 400 have on the Indianapolis 500? Why are Speedway officials breaking from tradition to join the NASCAR circuit? And how will ticket sales be handled? We'll look for answers to these questions and more as we examine this week's top story. Normally this time of year, there is only one event on the minds of race fans all across the USA, and that, of course, is the Indianapolis 500. But it is a different race at the Speedway that has everyone's attention this week. Circle this date on your calendars. Saturday, August 6th, 1994, that's next summer, will mark the beginning of a new era. Speedway President Tony George calls it the biggest day in Speedway history. The Brickyard 400 is still 16 months away, but people are indeed excited about it. And the biggest question being asked right now is how to get tickets.
There will be no ticket order forms out until July 1st, and there will be no ticket orders taken until August 18th. One of the key issues is what about existing ticket holders for the Indianapolis 500? Everybody who is a current Indianapolis 500 ticket holder will be automatically mailed a ticket order form for the Brickyard 400 on July 1st, the same day the public offering goes out. The only difference will be that current Indianapolis 500 ticket holders may return their order forms immediately. This will help our ticket office staff assess demand.
Now, if you need more information, the Speedway has set up a toll-free phone number for you. You can call 1-800-822-INDY. That number, once again, is 1-800-822-INDY, or if you like numbers, 4639. We can tell you to expect ticket prices to be about the same as those for the Indianapolis 500, ranging between $25 and $100 a shot. Now, besides the fans and the drivers, business owners are likely to benefit the most from the Brickyard 400. In just a moment on Top Story, a look at the financial impact. We'll talk with Bob Desautels from the Indianapolis Convention Bureau and Charles Bowling, a Speedway councilman. Plus, we'll get reaction to the Holman family's decision to host a NASCAR event from broadcasters who cover NASCAR races and, of course, the Indy 500. Joining us, the voice of the greatest spectacle in racing, Bob Jenkins. From the 500 Network, Gary Lee will join us, and so will our own Dick Rea. But first, the Brickyard 400 is certain to bring NASCAR a record crowd and a record purse, not to mention some big-name drivers who can't wait to be a part of the Speedway's rich history. And as Dick Rea reports, it's all part of Tony Holman's dream of wanting the Speedway to be a multifaceted entertainment facility.
84 years of Speedway history and tradition will take a whole new turn in August of 1994.
The name of the event will be the Brickyard 400, and it will be a 400-mile, 160-lap race.
The NASCAR drivers on hand for that announcement from Tony George said all the right things of what could become Winston Cup Racing's crown jewel. Record-setting crowds and prize money are expected.
You know, the first time you make a lap around a racetrack, you come down the front straightaways and you got grandstands on each side. To see those full of people will probably be the overwhelming side.
I think if you ask the competitors, that they would say, I don't care how much money they pay, I don't care if they pay any money, I just want to be the first one to win at Indy. And I think that's the attitude that they'll all have, and I think that's the way they'll go at it too.
Even though there's still lots of details to be ironed out, such as future NASCAR testing and the actual race day procedures, the one thing we do know is that there is a very good chance you'll see both NASCAR and IndyCar drivers competing here during the inaugural event. George says IndyCar is leaving its schedule open that weekend. The good old boys come riding into town.
If I could do 900 miles here in a year, then instead of 500, then I'd be really ecstatic about that.
Well, you know, little Al ran in Daytona and ran really great, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I feel like they will, and they're all welcome, and come on in, let's go racing.
We're joined now by the voice of the 500, Bob Jenkins, Gary Lee from the 500 Network, and Dick Rea. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Top Story this week. You know, people out there may be wondering, this is a sports story to some people, but it exceeds that in terms of its economic impact and what it will do for the city's image. How big of a deal is the Brickyard 400 going to be?
I think it's going to be a big deal for the residents of Indianapolis and for stock car fans all over the country. I think it is one of the most important elements of motorsports that's happened in the last 50 years, maybe. I really do. I know the NASCAR people have been waiting for this to happen. I know that there's a little bit of hesitation on some IndyCar fans that aren't sure that they want foreigners invading their territory. But I think overall it's one of the greatest things to come out of motorsports in a lot of years.
Gary, what's the buzz you're hearing?
I like his remark about foreigners invading. At least these foreigners are from the South, not from across the pond. It's probably the worst kept secret that we've had in motorsports in a long time, because I think we were both surprised that it was announced so soon, but it was not surprising that there will be a race in '94. I think the common remark from some IndyCar drivers is that it will diminish the Indy 500. I think there's a lot to be learned from these stock car drivers. I think there's a certain nose in the air mentality, aloofness in IndyCar racing right now, and if they just follow these stock car drivers around and see how they relate with the fans, there's something to be learned.
It's really going to change the city too, Dick Rea, because we know the month of May is up for grabs. Now you throw August into the mix.
You know, and I'd like to think that the Speedway and NASCAR people are creative enough that they'll come up with unique ideas to make this a very unique race, as is the Indianapolis 500. I don't think it will diminish the impact that race has in May at all.
Now, Bob, you cover racing for ESPN, and you know, here in Indianapolis, this has been the big story all week. People have been talking about what it's going to do for the city economically, for its image, and of course for the Speedway. But what are you hearing from your friends around the country?
I'm hearing that they're very excited. As you saw Darrell say, and Bill and Dale, everybody is excited about this. To come to Indianapolis and race is a really big deal. I mean, even these guys who have never driven an Indy car, who maybe have never been to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, know its history. They know that this is the the center of the motorsports world, and they want to come here and race. And as Darrell said, he would probably do it even if there was no money involved. But of course there will be money, there will be points, there will be everything that the Winston Cup race driver comes to a race for, plus it will be Indianapolis.
Do you think this will be as tough a ticket off the top as the 500 is today? In other words, is it going to take time for local fans to catch on?
I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I think we'll fill the stands for this first race for those that hold tickets for the 500 that want to be here for the initial stock car race. Plus, you're going to get all of these stock car fans that are from the Southeast that also want to be here for the inaugural. So I think we're going to fill the stands. I'm not sure that we'll have quite as many people as there will be for the Indianapolis 500, but I think we're going to have several 100,000 people in the stands and in the infield.
Gary?
Oh, I totally agree. In fact, to amplify on what he was saying about the drivers wanting to come here and participate in the first one, I try to draw a comparison between the IndyCar drivers and the stock car drivers. The stock car drivers are saying, this is Indy. We respect the history of this place. Darrell Waltrip, I think, amplifies it very well and underscores that. I have talked to so many new drivers, rookies, at the Brickyard during the month of May that say, well, this is just another racetrack. Well, it isn't just another racetrack. This is the Brickyard. This is the Indianapolis 500, or home of the 500, and I think the stock car drivers respect that.
Do you think that the drivers, what was the sense of the Speedway when the announcement was made? I know that there was some anticipation it might come this week, the day before Mark Patrick was talking about it, but it is a major announcement and it has broad implications on a lot of levels.
Well, tremendous opportunity for these drivers not only to be a part of history, to drive at Indianapolis, but to be the guy that wins that first race. That's the thing that they want to do, is they want to come here and win it.
Do you guys see any negatives attached to this announcement?
I really can't. The question I've been asking myself and everybody who expresses a little bit of displeasure with the announcement, why not? Why can't we use the facility for a second time during the year? And why shouldn't it be a stock car race? One thing that's always bothered me about the auto racing community, so many times we're fractionalized. IndyCar people, fans, dislike stock car racing. Stock car fans sometimes just don't like IndyCar racing. Drag racers don't like sprint car racing. If we would all come together as a unit and support auto racing in general and disregard the fact that only one race, and it's been an IndyCar race, has been held here since 1911. Disregard that. Let's become one unit. Let's support auto racing and have a great time for the Indy 500 and have a great time for the Brickyard 400.
See, Bob and I cover motorsports every week, so I don't necessarily circle one particular date on my calendar to go and be a fan or a spectator, but this is one date I'll circle. If I'm not involved in the broadcast or the radio broadcast, I will be there because I think that this will be the best show on that racetrack since the Roadsters ran back in the 50s, because these guys will run nose to tail. You don't see that on IndyCar because of all the dirty air coming out from under the ground effects and all the other modifications. So I think this will be the best show that we have seen in probably 30 years.
We're going to go to a break, but come back and talk some more about this, plus about television coverage when Top Story continues. We're back with Gary Lee, Bob Jenkins, and Dick Rea, and we were talking about this before we went to the break, how this race is going to play out, the spectacle of the first Brickyard 400. Is there a chance that the 500, which is, of course, the greatest spectacle in racing and gets a lot of hype, might lose a little bit of its luster because we'll have two races out there?
I don't think so. One of the big questions on my mind is, what do we do in the hour before the Brickyard 400? I think that the pre-race ceremonies that we have for the Indianapolis 500 every year, the playing of Back Home Again in Indiana, the national anthem, taps, the invocation, is without question the most exciting moment in all of sports. I don't care whether it's motorsports or whatever it is. My question is, what are we going to do in that hour before the Brickyard 400? Will there be ceremonies? Will there be that tradition that is built for that race? I don't know what's going to happen there, but no, to answer your question, the Indianapolis 500 will always be the Indy 500. The mystique, the pomp, the circumstance that surrounds that race will always be with us, and I don't think that it will lose a bit of luster because of the stock car race.
I think when you look at 400,000 fans on race day for the 500, many of those are fans of the event. They are not necessarily race fans. When I give a speech, I'll say, how many race fans do we have here? And all these hands go up. I'll say, how many of you at the Speedway? The hands stay up. How many of you go to Winchester or Salem or Terre Haute or another IndyCar race, and all the hands go back down? I think when we look at the number of people that show up for the stock car race, we may find more actual race fans at the track than we find during the month of May.
Do you think, Dick Rea, that many Indy drivers are going to make the switch now? Will this be an added incentive for them to hop into a NASCAR?
That was one of the things I asked Tony George at the press conference, is whether or not IndyCar will allow their schedule to be open that weekend. I guess for the first year, he says he believes it will be. And I even read in the paper where Mario Andretti's considering perhaps looking at running stock car races, which I guess he did back in the 60s. And you have Little Al that ran Daytona. I think they'll be, you know, very excited for that opportunity to come here and race against the NASCAR.
Gary?
Well, when he said Mario, only 2 drivers have won both the Daytona and the Indy 500, Mario and AJ.
I think what we might see is that a lot of IndyCar drivers will want to find a ride for this race, but I'm not sure they're going to be able to. There are a select number of competitive teams in NASCAR. What I think we might see, quite honestly, is a few of the IndyCar owners that buy a Winston Cup team in the next year and get involved with it and therefore have a ride for their driver for this race. I hope that's the case. I really do.
Just have a couple of minutes left with you, gentlemen. Let's talk about television coverage. And I know a bone of contention among some local fans who can't make it out to the Speedway is the tape-delayed coverage of the 500. Do you think we'll have a similar situation with the Brickyard 400? Obviously, that's something yet to be negotiated, but is the Holman family starting to move toward live coverage locally?
You're looking at me and I'm looking at you because I don't have an answer for that.
Put these guys on the spot.
Wrong people.
I have no idea. I would think
Just going
that,
from the gut.
I would think that we could possibly see this race live, depending upon ticket sales. I don't think that a live race is going to hurt their gate very much. I think it remains to be seen which network does it and exactly how it's handled, but it wouldn't surprise me to see this race live.
Gary? I see you kind of shrinking.
Well, I don't belong to the Holman George family, so I don't know what their thinking is, but I could see it live, and it certainly I could see the Indy 500 live. It's not going to hurt the gate. You're going to have 400,000 or 500,000 people out there if it's live or not.
Well, it seems to be moving that way because it used to be that they'd show it long after the fact, and now it's the night of. So, Dick, what are your thoughts?
The beautiful thing is there's no tradition for this race, so you can start from square one and do it however you'd like to. So maybe we'll see it live.
It's going to be a very interesting 16 months as we wait for August of 1994 in the first Brickyard 400. Gary Lee, Bob Jenkins, Dick Rea, thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
Top Story this week. When we come back, how will the Speedway's first stock car race impact the local economy? We'll discuss that issue when Top Story continues.
24-hour News 8 on today's Wish TV. It's the best news you'll get all May.
Welcome back to Top Story. I'm Ken Owen, joined now by Bob Desautels from the Convention and Visitors Bureau here in Indianapolis, as well as Chuck Bowling, who is a Speedway councilman. We're going to talk about what the Brickyard 400 is going to do for the city of Indianapolis and the city of Speedway. First of all, Bob, we were talking during the break about the impact economically is going to be huge, but the vision that the people have of Indianapolis continues to change because as people come in here, they see things beyond the race.
Yes, and I think the important thing to note that it gives Indianapolis another chance to be seen and exposed nationwide, and as a result, people who do not know us get a chance to know us not only from a racing standpoint, but those who are going to visit us see the city in a whole new light. They see the convenient hotel package, they see the downtown attractions, they see the suburban attractions and shopping, they see Hoosier hospitality, and they find out something that they may not have realized, and that is that there's not only Midwestern Hoosier hospitality, but there's a lot to see and do